I haven't been inside of a Honda in close to 10 years. So having the Accord Hybrid is a pretty cool way to reintroduce myself into what Honda vehicles have to offer. And in this video, you're going to learn everything you need to know about the Honda Accord. But if you're looking for a shorter walkthrough or you just want some videos on using the technology, you'll find those down in the description, along with a build link to Honda Canada and US. Pricing for the Accord in Canada starts at around $40,200 versus down in the States at around $29,400. And the pricing goes up depending on whether you're in the regular gas engine, if you're in the hybrid, and which trim level you've opted for. This is the Touring Hybrid, which is the highest available trim in Canada. There are 3 primary options in Canada and 6 different options in the US, with varying feature sets and different available technology. This one is in the Canyon Gray Metallic, but if you were to ask me, I would say the Canyon River Blue Metallic with tinted windows would look so good inside of this ride. The Accord does have a series of different wheel sizes and styles available. At a minimum, you're looking at 17-inch wheels going up to a 19-inch with some different wheel styles depending on the trim level that you've chosen. This is the touring trim, so you're looking at 19s with a nice split spoke wheel. I do like the style. If it was fully black, it'd be perfect for me, but you've always got the option of hydro dipping. Drivetrain-wise, you're only going to find the Accord front-wheel drive. I'm in Canada, and I've driven front-wheel drive cars in the wintertime for years. No issue front-wheel drive with winter. I prefer all-wheel drive myself, but realistically, just throw a good set of winter tires on there, and the car will more than have you covered. It doesn't matter which trim level of the Accord you're looking at, you're always going to find LED headlamps inside of the ride, and the lamps, they're subtle, but lit up at night, look pretty good. There's the option for a forward sensing system inside of the ride, but you won't find a 360 camera. But still, those parking sensors, forwards, backwards, are pretty useful. Style-wise, there's a nice black gloss highlight that follows all the way throughout, so a little lip on the lower part of the bumper. That matches nicely with the gloss highlight you're going to find inside of that grille, with the Honda badge wrapped nicely in the middle there. Underneath the hood of the Accord, there are 2 different engine choices that are available. The default engine inside of the vehicle is a 1.5-liter turbocharged engine, but you've also got the option for this, and it's a 2-liter naturally aspirated hybrid. Traditional hybrid, so there's no plug-in capabilities, but it does give you a great combined power output with way better fuel economy in comparison to the regular 1.5-liter. Combined power output is 204 horsepower and an impressive 264 pound-feet of torque. So, got to get myself back up to highway speed here, put myself into sport mode. We'll go in 3, 2, and Accord power! Gonna use paddle shifters too. 100. Interesting. Okay. So the performance there, that was surprisingly good. So you kind of get the best of both worlds inside of the hybrid. You get more power combined, and you also get better fuel economy. And I just think that's a win for the hybrid. It does come at a cost though, but I'll touch on the economy in just a second. Under the hood here, you can easily top up your fluids, check and change your oil as well. And then the warranty inside of the Accord is pretty industry standard. Your basic is going to be a 3-year, 36,000 miles, 60,000 kilometer. The powertrain gets bumped up to 5 years, 60,000 mile, 100,000 kilometer. And then the hybrid electric components inside of the ride are covered for 8 years, 100,000 mile, 160,000 K. You just want to make sure you take your vehicle in for regularly scheduled maintenance, but at least regularly change the oil to get the best possible life out of your ride. I've seen Accords easily roll over 300,000-400,000 kilometers, but it hinges on you taking care of this vehicle. The rear end styling of the Accord is simple. It actually kind of reminds me of the Elantra, a tiny little bit. You're going to find LED tail lamps in the back, and the lamps are wrapped with this beautiful glossy black bezel that wraps all the way throughout. The lower part of the bumper also has that nice black highlight. And then tech-wise, you're going to find the reverse park sensing system along with the backup camera. towing inside of the Accord is not possible. It's not rated for towing whatsoever, whether that's going for a trailer or even just a hitch for a bike rack carrier. So you're going to have to look at different options inside of the Honda world if you wanted to tow. Having said that, I do have friends back in the day when we were kids who would just pile canoes on the top of their ride, no problem. But there is a max weight limit inside of the vehicle. Getting into the trunk can be done a few different ways. So you can utilize the key fob to do it. But just underneath the Honda badge, there's also a little button that you can push in order to lift it up instead. And there is a surprising amount of room back here. Feature-wise, there's nothing off to the left side, nothing off to the right side. This one has the available thermoplastic rubber tray that you're going to find right from the factory. And honestly, the rubber tray, at least for the first row, second row seats, useful. The cargo area, if you're going to be putting a bunch of things in the back here, it's just so much easier to take this out and spray it down in comparison to the carpeted mats instead. But that's going to come down to a matter of preference. But underneath the tray here, lifting up, you're not going to find a spare tire inside of the ride. So there's just a little inflator kit. And then there's also going to be a little white spigot. So there's no mini spare tire inside of this ride. So if you ever pop a tire, puncture a tire, you're SOL to a degree. Because one of the nice things about being a Honda owner is that you have access to roadside assistance. And that's good for 3 years with a number of different coverages. So you can call an 800 number and a tow truck can help out with tire changing, fuel delivery, winching, lockout services, and so many other things. So it's just one of the added benefits of being a Honda owner. And if you really wanted a spare tire because you're going somewhere off-roading or you just want it for added peace of mind for distance trips, you can always get a donut and then just add in an aftermarket jack stand yourself. Folding down the second row seats has to be done from the trunk area to a degree. So there are releases on the left and the right-hand side. So you can pull those releases. And then in order to fold the seats down, if you can reach it from the trunk, you can go down and push in order to lower the seats. But if you can't reach it from the trunk area, pop those second row doors open and you can fold down the seats. And it's a 40-60 split. And you do have quite a little bit of space inside of this ride. Then the dimensions that you're looking at for behind the first row are going from right where the trunk would close, so right at the end there, to just in behind that little armrest between the first row seats. So if the driver's seat, passenger seat were forwards or backwards, you'd lose or gain a little bit of extra space, but you can fit a lot of junk inside of this trunk. Filling up fuel inside of the Accord is done just along the driver's side. And one nice thing is that when the car's locked, the fuel door is also locked. So you just have to unlock in order to gain access to the fuel door there. And it is a capless system. So it has anti-siphon technology built in. But if you ever needed to fill up using a jerry can, white spigot is just in the trunk. When it comes to fuel quality, minimum manufacturer's recommendation is just regular 87. So regular gas is all you need to use. And now, the question of, do you look at the hybrid or do you go for the regular internal combustion engine instead? It's going to come down to your driving habits and what you care about inside of your ride. When I was on the highway picking this car up, I was averaging about 5.1 liters per 100. I got it as low as 4.9. And that's just because of that electric motor and the battery. It's just going to propel the car forward so you can coast if you're not gunning it and driving like a donkey. But if you can kind of keep yourself in check as you drive, the hybrid could be worth it because you're getting roughly 20 to 25% better fuel economy inside of the hybrid compared to the regular gas engine. So if you typically spend $3,000 a year in gas, you might be able to save $600 to $800 per year. Over the course of 5 to 7 years of ownership, that's $3,000 to $6,000 that you'd save over the course of the lifetime that you own this ride. So it could be worth it for the right person. If you're after more power, better fuel economy, it's a car that I'd probably recommend you look at. The Accord is a 4-door sedan. You can see I am towering over this ride, but there's a surprising amount of space inside. And getting into the first row is incredibly easy. Getting into the second, equally as easy. And there are assist handles in the first and second row across all 4 doors. The Accord features a walkaway lock So as long as you've got the fob on, you walk away, the door will lock. And there are some other pretty cool key fob tricks as well. But if you want to know what they are and how to use them, you'll find a walkthrough down below. The Accord features manual folding, side view mirrors with turn signals. There's also a blind spot system. So if somebody enters the blind spot on either side, that's going to highlight to let you know. There's intelligent access. You can also push there to lock the doors, slide your hand in order to unlock. Ooh, before we get inside, there's the option for driver's seat memory inside of the ride. You're going to find basics like side view mirror controls, window controls with some storage. You've got a few different types of seating material that are available with power adjustable first row seats. There's a button there in order to open up the trunk. And then taking a peek at the steering wheel as well as the cluster screen inside of the Honda Accord. This is the touring model of the car, but you will see a lot of similar features and layouts inside of a number of other Honda vehicles. So first thing I'm going to point out is that the steering wheel inside the vehicle is going to be manual telescoping. So by your left knee there, you've got a switch to go in, out, up and down. Once you've got that perfect position, you're going to click it in order to lock it back into place. You've got a little steering wheel icon along the very bottom here, and that's going to be to toggle the heated steering wheel on or off. And it's heated all the way around, and it feels so good in the wintertime. But there are so many things you need to know. This vehicle itself, well, it's not the steering wheel cluster, also has the option for driver's seat memory. So along the left-hand side, you'll find a button that says set. And then you could then push either 1 or 2 for it to remember your own personal profile for your seat. So if there are multiple people driving, you can have it set up that way. You can even lock it into your key fob through the infotainment system. Other things to point out, you've got a series of options here for your lights. So you could turn your lights off completely if you'd like to, but I normally just recommend just keep yourself in the auto mode. And there's different modes available here, just depending on what you need. But the auto mode, what it's going to do, there's an auto high beam mode available inside of the infotainment system. And what that means is that if the vehicle recognizes your high beams are needed, it's automatically going to turn them on. If somebody's oncoming, it's going to turn them off before turning them right back on again. If you wanted to permanently lock your high beams though, you can't do that in the auto mode. So what you need to do, go into your headlamp mode instead. You could then push away in order to turn on your high beams, pull towards you in order to turn them off. But regardless of the light mode, you'll be able to flash your high beams out regardless. Then your turn stalk is there as well. Along the right-hand side, that's going to be for your wipers. So you've got a few different modes. You can push up in order to go once, and then adjust down for different options. If you're in the second mode, so I guess technically the first mode down, that's an auto mode. And you could also then adjust this out for how fast or slow the rain is hitting the windshield. So you've got different options available there. And then you've got so many different buttons. So the ones on the right-hand side are going to be for cruise control. So it's strictly going to be adaptive cruise control inside of this ride. So you could turn it on by pushing there. Once you have it on, you get up to speed, or even if you're just cruising, you could then push down to set your speed and then increase or decrease 1 kilometer, 1 mile per hour at a time by pushing up or down that way. From there, you could also push and hold up in order to jump to the nearest 5 or 0. So 5 kilometers or 5 miles per hour at a time. So if you're at, let's say 43 kilometers an hour, push and hold up, it'll bring you to 45, 50, 55, etc. You go down, it'll go the opposite way. And it's the same thing for miles. You could then hit the brake to pause the speed. You can hit cancel to pause the speed, and then you can push up to resume your previously set speed. Then there's a distance indicator. So it's how close or far are you away from the vehicle that's in front of you. So 4 different levels. I find, honestly, on residential streets, level 1 is okay. On highways and interstates, I'm actually usually on level 1 as well. But you could fluctuate 1, 2, 3, just depending on your own personal preference. But I want you to think of that almost like a 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi type of a rule instead for how close or far you are from the vehicle that's in front of you. There's also a lane centering system or a lane follow assist. It's really cool. So what happens is that as long as the vehicle recognizes the lane markings, you'll notice that the markings go green along the side when you've got that enabled. And then it's not self-driving, but it keeps you perfectly balanced in your lane as you go. If you lose focus for a second, it can keep you perfectly balanced in your lane with your hands off of the steering wheel too. After about 10 or 12 seconds, you do get a message inside of the cluster telling you to put your hands back on the steering wheel again, but it's a pretty useful system. But if you want to actually see how adaptive cruise control works in person, check down in the description of this video for a live demonstration. From there, you've got a series of other buttons here. I guess technically you've got the switch in order to move between here, but I'll show you that one as we zoom in. But you can change between songs or radio stations this way. If you have presets set up inside of the screen, you could also push in order to jump between all of your different presets. You could also do a push and hold in order for it to act almost as like a seek button instead. So you've got that flexibility through the screen. You can also scan, but you can use the voice command prompt to be able to change songs, radio stations. You can navigate using your voice as well. You can adjust your volume this way. You can also push the button just on the top of the screen here to adjust your volume, or mute out, turning your audio off that way instead. And then there are so many things about the cluster screen that you need to know here as well. So this is the hybrid, which is why it looks different than the traditional internal combustion engine. Along the outside, that's going to be your high voltage battery. So how much juice do you have left inside of the battery as of right now? You can tell I'm running a little bit low, so I need to start driving. Down the center stack, there's a button that you can push in order to jump between different modes. So it's auto versus EV mode. EV means that it's going to force the battery to run essentially in electric mode, but auto means that the vehicle is going to determine whether or not you're in the hybrid or the gas mode, the electric mode. It's going to jump you like really seamlessly between the options. And then there's also a series of individual drive modes. So economy or econ is going to be for the best possible fuel economy. Sport is not only going to give you the best performance in the ride, but it's going to tighten up the steering as well and then increase the overall responsiveness. So if you're a fan of a sportier drive, sport mode is where you want to go. And then there's an individual mode. So inside of the infotainment system, you'd have the flexibility of being able to set your own custom level as well. But I want you to think of the gauges here. So this one specifically, like a traditional tachometer. So you put your foot down, you're going to use up power, so it's going to go this way. If you were in the gas version, same idea, you put your foot down, your tachometer is going to go up. When you brake, if you're doing heavy braking, you'll notice this gauge drop down quite a little bit. So what it's trying to do is capture additional power for regenerative braking. Because inside of the hybrid, it's not a plug-in. But what it does is it's going to charge the battery as you drive and charge the battery as you brake. So as you go to brake, you'll notice that that gauge goes down, and it's going to go down even more if you brake hard. You can see that we're in an EV mode here. The vehicle's ready to drive. You've got your outside temperature, what gear you're currently in, so whether that's park, reverse, neutral, drive, etc. But even as you jump between all of the different gears, you can see your different sensing systems that are available. So if those are available in your ride, that would show up. And then you've also got the option for rear mirror tilt as well. So if we look at our mirror there, shift into reverse, watch this. Yeah, you can see the mirror tilting just to make it easier to see what's going on all the way around you. Now, the engine just turned on by itself as well, and you can see there. So what it's doing is it's got the regular engine running to try to charge up the battery there as well. So that's really cool, and it looks really neat as you drive. And then from there, you've got your current vehicle speed. You've got your speed done different that way. You've got your current vehicle there. So whether or not you've got your high beams on, things like that, you've got your turn signals, you're moving over, it'll look slightly different. I'm currently in the individual drive mode, but if I was in sport mode, it would look slightly different in comparison. So you can see there, the gauges I just think look a little bit more aggressive. You've got your current odometer along the very bottom right-hand side there as well. And then your fuel gauge along the full right-hand side. So I'm completely full as of right now for fuel. And then you've got these two little rockers on the bottom side of both of parts of the steering wheel, so on the left and the right. Along the left, you can jump between AM, FM, Bluetooth, etc. So whatever options are available there, you can customize the screen a little bit. It's essentially what your options are here. So if you never listen to AM radio, if you don't have Alexa, things like that, you can essentially disable different parts here. So when we jump back up and we go back and we go back again, as you jump between options, it's going to limit the options that are showing up. So you can kind of customize that screen a tiny little bit if you'd like, and then just button push in order to jump into whatever source that you'd like. Along the right-hand side, you're adjusting the little gauge in the middle there. So if we start from the top, you've got your power flow. So as you go to drive, it's going to show you if you're using any of your battery, if it's charging the battery up, whatever the case may be. Dropping down into your fuel economy. So as of right now, so I'm just sitting, but I've been able to get about 4.9 liters per 100. It's wild the range that you get inside of this car. And then you've got the flexibility. If you push that little rocker switch in to go between your trip A versus trip B counter instead. Dropping down gives you your speed, your time. You can reset it by pushing and holding in as well. So that's going to reset your trip counter if you'd like to. Dropping down into navigation. So there's full mapping cluster available. And that's strictly going to be when you're hooked up through Google Maps through the screen. So if you're hooked up over Android or iPhones and you try to do that, it's not going to show up anything but Google Maps built in. But I still think that's really cool. Very useful setting. So you've got your next up is your driver attention warning. So if you start to veer over too many times without signaling, the counter here is going to start going up, and eventually it's going to tell you that you should probably take a break. You can adjust out that setting in the infotainment system so you get a little steering wheel vibration and a chime, a steering wheel vibration, or nothing. So if that drives you crazy, you could disable it if you want to. That's who's plugged in for their seatbelts, maintenance information. So if you're changing oil out, you can see your current oil life. Safety support. So this is kind of a neat one. So you can see here all of your different safety info. So do you want your road departure warning turned on, your blind spot system and things like that? So you can adjust and toggle all of these things on or off. So road departure mitigation, if you start to veer over into a lane without signaling, it can nudge you back into your lane. Blind spot system. So if somebody enters the blind spot on either side, you'll get a notification in your side view mirror letting you know. If you're going to back up, so braking control, if there's an obstacle behind you, it can brake for you. The beeping that you get as you get too close to obstacles. There's collision assist, it can automatically brake for you. So you can turn all of these safety systems off if you really wanted to. If you just wanted nothing in the middle, so a traditional speedometer instead, you've got that flexibility. You can adjust the brightness here too. I typically recommend just maximum brightness, but that's going to be a matter of preference. There's a head-up display inside of the ride, which, yeah, we'll touch on that one last. All right, so we've also got the vehicle assist, so whether or not you've got traction control on or off. The only time you'd want to have your traction control system off, ideally, is in wintertime. So if you notice that you're not getting good wheel traction, you just turn traction control off in order to help with wheel slippage. And from there, there's gauge display. So speed distance, do you want to be in either miles or kilometers? So you can see there, it's going to adjust it out. And then if you're in miles, if we jump back and back again, you can see I'm now in miles there. So if you're going cross-border, you've got the flexibility to change between either miles or kilometers. You can hide and show different things. So do you want to show your power flow, navigation? So it's essentially the ones that are grayed out, you can't turn off, but you can turn all of these other ones off. So as you're using the scroll wheel, what's showing up? I just honestly, having all of those options there, in my opinion, is good, but that's a matter of preference. And then you can also change out the overall design. So do you like the round look? Do you want this barred look instead? You can do a minimalistic look. Let's see, a bar minimal, and then a full minimal. So like a true minimalist, then you'll only have your speed in the very middle there. So that's going to be a matter of preference. I personally am a bigger fan of the round, but that's just me. So you can really customize the screen in order to tweak it out and make it more of you. Like, it's kind of neat. And back. Then the last one is going to be the head-up display. So head-up display, you can adjust a few things, like you can adjust what content showing up inside of the head-up display. You could also turn the whole head-up display off. You can adjust the brightness, the height, and the rotation. So let's pop up, and I'm going to show you what's going on with the head-up display. So if we actually go and toggle the head-up display on, you can see different information there. So you've got your speedometer, if you want navigation going, so if you had a turn-by-turn route going, so if you had factory nav running, turn-by-turn directions that show there. There's driver assistance settings, so if you've got the cruise control system enabled, things like that, or nothing showing up. So it's a matter of preference, what's actually showing there, but you can get quite a little bit of info inside of the screen. You can adjust the brightness of the screen. I always recommend keeping it on maximum brightness. You can adjust the height, so depending on where you're sitting, you can move it up or down, and then you can also adjust the rotation. Taking a peek at the infotainment system inside of the Honda Accord. The Accord does technically have two different screens that are available. So this is the larger 12.3 inch. There's a smaller one that's available as well in some of the lower trims, but you're going to have some similar functionality with one big difference, that this one has Google built in. But I'm going to walk you through everything that you need to know about the system. So along the outside, you've got a series of different buttons. So you've got a few along the top that are always locked into place. But if you push and hold, that's going to essentially loosen them up, and you've got the flexibility to be able to customize some of them. So if you push and hold, you can adjust the bottom 3. So you can have any of these different icons along the bottom 3. So if you wanted to have maybe Apple CarPlay down there, you'd have the flexibility to do it. You could edit your home icons there as well. So don't show that. So if you wanted to change the layout, it's the same idea. You can just button push and hold in order to adjust it, in order to make it your own. If we hop back, that's going to adjust that screen, and then we've adjusted the one on the left side. So you do have the flexibility of adjusting the screen out a little bit to customize it and make it your own. You've got this tray along the right-hand side that's always going to be stuck in place there as well. This is the hybrid model of the Accord, which is why we've got that power flow. But if you didn't have the hybrid, everything else would look exactly the same. You've got a home button, basic back button. So if you're on any of these screens, you can hit back or hit home if you'd like to. But let's dive in and I'll show you all of the other features. So inside of this tray, along the top, you can also hit the user in order to change user profiles. And one of the big benefits there is that if there are multiple people driving the vehicle, you can easily add in an additional profile. So if you wanted to remember all of your presets, your phone that was connected, if you've got maps going and things like that, you'd have the flexibility to be able to do it. You can also adjust things out, connect if you'd like to. Straightforward. But it is beneficial having multiple profiles, especially if there are multiple people driving the car. But if it's just you, you can still set it up if you'd like to, and then you can also secure it, which I'll show you in a second. The vehicle does have Google Maps built in, which is useful. You can still hook up over iPhone or Android devices if you want to. You use Google Maps, Apple Maps, or Waze through iPhones, and then Google Maps and Waze through Android, which I'll touch on. But having Google Maps built in is incredibly useful. And you can easily search for different point of interest icons if you wanted to. So let's go for Tim Hortons, see what's available there. Might notice sometimes, depending on your connection level, it might take a little bit in order to load up, but you can see we've got different options there. So if let's go ahead and select one that's a bit further away. There you go. So I'm offline as of right now, but you can start, you can add a stop, or you could add in an additional route option. So if you wanted to avoid different things on the route, like highways, toll roads, ferries, things like that, you'd have that flexibility. If there was more than one route to get there, it would also show you, but it's just telling us this is just going to be the best available route. You can also choose another destination. So let's say if you wanted to maybe fill up on gas before you went to Tim Hortons, you'd have that flexibility. There we go. So we're just going to select a random one along the way. If your phone was connected, the phone's there, so you'd be able to call as well if you'd like. We're just going to hit add stop, and now there are 2 different routes that we could go. So we could take route 1 or route 2 if we'd like to. And then you can also do a button push there on the hamburger icon in order to adjust the route. So if you wanted to stop at the gas station first before you went to Tim Hortons, you'd have that flexibility. You can hit X along the side there if you wanted to cancel out one of these individual options. And then you just hit done. You can start or just edit. From there, you can hit this icon again if you wanted to change your route options. You could search for another option. You could exit out in order to remove just the next stop, or fully exit navigation instead. There we go. And from here, you've got a few other options. So the screen is full pinch to zoom capabilities. You've also got the flexibility of changing the heading this way if you'd like. You could mute out notifications. You could look at different perspectives and options there. You can hit the little gear icon if you'd prefer the satellite mode. That's available. You've got 3D buildings available as an option, and then avoiding different things as well. So it is Google Maps. And then one cool thing is that you can also hit this little icon to sign into Google. So if you tend to use Google Maps on your phone instead, you could log in, and then you'd have the flexibility of seeing all of the addresses that you've searched for on your phone showing up right inside of the screen too. So if you've pre-planned routes and things like that, that would show up. You can hit the back button to get back home here. And next up is going to be adding in a phone. And we're going to start off on the iPhone side of things. So connect a new device. You're going to hop into your phone's Bluetooth, and we're going to search for devices. And there we go. We've got Honda Accord popping up. So we're going to connect there. There we go. And PIN numbers match up. So we're going to pair. Do you want to allow contacts and favorites to sync up? This is not my car, so I'm going to say no to that one. And then from there, you can see we are fully connected. So if we were, hold on, connecting. There we go. Would you like to enable CarPlay? So if you didn't want to use CarPlay, you could just hit no there, and then you can set as a priority. So if there's multiple phones connected, it's who's it going to try to connect to first. But you've got full wireless CarPlay capabilities inside of the Ride. It is also backwards compatible. So if you wanted to use a USB-C, you've got the flexibility to do it as well. But if you're trying to hook up over USB and it's not working, or you're running into other connectivity issues, check down in the description of this video for a little walkthrough. But one with the cable is that you might be using strictly a charge cable, because there's charge cables and then charge and data transfer cables. So that would be the first thing. But like I said, check down in the description for a fuller walkthrough, and let's enable Apple CarPlay. And from here, we're just waiting a second for, there we go, this message to pop up on the phone. Do you want to use CarPlay with the Accord? Yes, we want to do that. And look at that. A few seconds in, and we are fully connected. And you can see there, no pinch to zoom capabilities though. That's the downside of CarPlay, but you've got CarPlay connected. You can hit this button if you wanted to do a little split screen instead. So if you had a preference to have the options along the side there, if you wanted to listen to radio on the Accord while you're running through CarPlay maps, you could, or just go full screen instead. You've got your current time, connection level, which map was open last, which audio application was open last, which miscellaneous application was open last. There's your battery level, as well as your little home icon. So you can hit the home icon there. You can swipe across as well, so it's fairly responsive inside of the screen here. You can hit the little icon view or the home view to jump one page or the other. You've got your phone, there's Apple Maps that's available, Google Maps, and Waze. My personal favorite is using Waze. I know that it's going to come down to a matter of preference, but you've got notifications in case there are police that are there. And then you've got live traffic and things like that. People giving you a heads up if there are cops pulling people over. You can hit the little plus icon as well if you notice police pulling people over, if there's a crash, hazards, things on the road, whatever the case may be. So I'm just a bigger fan of using Waze, but that's a matter of preference. You've got a boatload of different apps that are available. So podcasts, if you're a fan of listening that way. You've got, let's see, Hoopla's a library app, Live One's a radio app. Like there are a ton of different apps that are available. But one thing to point out is that the screen for Apple CarPlay does not support video playback. So there are things like YouTube Music and VLC available, but you don't have the flexibility of actually watching video through Apple CarPlay yet. In your settings, you've got driver focus. You can adjust the appearance. You can change out the wallpaper if you want to customize it and make it your own. And there are some additional settings there. And then on the steering wheel, there's also a voice command prompt. So along the left-hand side of the steering wheel, if you do a long push and hold, that's going to activate your Siri assistant. So a short button push is going to activate the built-in assistant for the vehicle, but a long button push, whether you're hooked up over CarPlay or just over Bluetooth, is going to launch into your phone assistant instead. And then on the phone, you've also got the flexibility of being able to customize the screen. So if you go into your settings and then general, you can go into CarPlay, find the vehicle, you can turn it off, you can customize it or forget it. You can customize here, and anything with a minus next to it, you can remove, but you can also do a push and hold if you wanted to adjust them. So if you wanted to have Waze at the very top, you'd have the flexibility to do it. If you wanted to have your podcast up there too, you could do it. Now, like I said, anything with a minus next to it, you can remove it from the screen. It saves it along the bottom of the phone though, so you could add them back in if you really wanted to. But if you've played around with this too much and you don't like what you've done, just hit reset, and that's just going to bring you back to the default layout instead. The home screen here is locked into place, so there's no way that you can customize the Apple CarPlay home screen. Unfortunately, it is what it is, but it's a useful system. From here, you can hop back home to get out of CarPlay if you'd like to. I've set this up for your hot button push along the very bottom. You could just do a push and hold again if you wanted to adjust out, but you can hop into CarPlay this way. That launches you back in. If you go into your general settings, you've got a bunch of different options here, but we're looking for connections. And then you've got manage connected devices. So we've got the iPhone that's currently connected over CarPlay. You could hit the Bluetooth button there, and what it's doing, it's disconnecting CarPlay and hooking up over Bluetooth. So Apple CarPlay actually does work over Wi-Fi versus your Bluetooth for phone calls and things like that. And we're just going to continue there. That's fine. And we're now connected over Bluetooth. And that's how you set up Apple devices inside of the Honda Accord. Setting up an Android device is the exact same process. So if you weren't on the screen, you were back home. Again, you're going to your general settings, connections, manage devices, and then you can connect a device there. So you've got your Bluetooth connections. You're going to search for a device, and then On your phone, you're looking for, oh, there we go. Look at that. Nice and quick. S9 Plus has shown up. There we go. And PIN numbers match up, so we're going to hit OK there. Do you want to allow access to contacts and messages? This is not my car, so again, I'm saying no to that one. And would you like to enable Android Auto? Same idea. Do you want to set it as the priority? So if there are two phones connected, who's it going to connect to first? And let's enable. And it'll take a few seconds there. And look at this. We are fully connected over Android Auto. So as you can see there, we are kind of a little split screen inside of Android Auto. But this is Google Maps. Along the very bottom, you've got your icon there to jump to this little icon view, back to your little split view. There's also going to be your Google Assistant that way for your phone, because there's the screen voice assistant, but there's also the voice assistant for your phone. Same idea, you can do a long button push and hold in order to activate your phone assistant if you'd like to. You could make Google Maps full screen this way, and that's just by hitting that little map icon, or you can go back to that little split screen view instead. I'm personally a big fan of this way, but you've got full pinch to zoom capabilities this way. You can search for addresses. You can hop in here in order to show 3D, route options, so avoiding highways, toll roads, ferries, and things like that. Then you hit this button along the bottom, brings you back to the screen. You've got some basic applications along the bottom, along with your current connection level and your battery as well. Now, if you have Waze installed on your phone like I've got here, but it's not showing up, check down in the description of this video because I've put together a little walkthrough explaining how you can add Waze to Android devices if it's not working for you. Then, from here, on your phone, if you search for Android Auto in your Android Auto settings, you're going to click through there, and that gives you a bunch of different options. But we're looking for Customize Launcher. And then, if you do a button push and hold, you'd be able to adjust the order, but it's not dynamic the same way it was on the iPhone side. So in order for these changes to come into effect, all you have to do, hop home, go to your settings, connections, devices. You're going to disconnect from Android Auto. You're going to reconnect to Android Auto. And in a few seconds, we are fully connected again with the changes that we've made now coming into effect. So it's not dynamic, but you still have that flexibility. And then you could hit home there. And then as I showed you earlier, you've got the flexibility to adjust these out. So if you're using Android Auto instead of CarPlay, you can have your quick launch tray showing that instead. If you go into your general settings, back into your connections and your connected devices, you could hook up this way instead. So we're disconnecting from Android Auto, connecting over Bluetooth. So you can essentially be connected one way or the other. Hitting options there gives you a boatload of other options, but that's how you set up Android devices and Apple devices inside of the Honda Accord. If you hit options from here, you can toggle Bluetooth off. So if you just don't want to use it at all, you can adjust priority devices if there are different devices connected, and you can change your vehicle name. So the default is Honda Accord, but if you want it to be Bob's Ride, Sally's Ride, whatever the case may be, you've got the flexibility of being able to change out your vehicle name there. And then you can also change out your size. Do you want it to be normal versus wide as your default connection? So that little split screen that you saw earlier. But that's hooking up a phone. It's straightforward doing it. You could connect to the phone there. If you wanted to try to reconnect over Bluetooth or Apple CarPlay, you can disconnect it or you can delete them. So if you're not a fan of having your device connected, or in this case, it's a pressed car, so just deleting the devices here, you can see a few seconds in and we are fully disconnected and deleted. You can see up to 6 devices are available to add into this vehicle as well. But that's how you hook up a phone inside of the vehicle. You've got FM available as a default here as well. You can hit this icon in order to get to all of your available audio sources. So AM, FM. If you had a USB stick with MP3s hooked up, that would show up. If you had a Bluetooth device connected, whether that's a phone or an iPod, whatever the case may be, you can select all of your different audio sources. You could tune this way if you'd like to, and then just enter through in order to be able to tune to a station. In order to save a preset, all you're going to do is push and hold. So I've got a few stations saved in. So let's tune to another random station here. And then you're just going to push and hold, and that saves it in. You'd also have the flexibility of being able to overwrite stations. So let's say if you didn't want that station, you could just tune to whatever station that you wanted. And you just push and hold. And that's going to give you the option for either removing or replacing. So let's replace. And there we go. We've now replaced the station. You could then do a push and hold there again if you wanted to hold and drag. So if you wanted to customize the layout of all of the buttons here, or all of your presets, I should say, you've got the flexibility to be able to do it. And then just hitting either home or back. Actually, back would have been smarter there, but that pulls you out of the screen. You can seek this way. You can scan to available stations, stop at any point in time. And if you're new to an area, you just hit station list, and that gives you all of the available stations. And you'll notice here, some of them have the HD button next to it. And that just means that it's broadcast digitally. So that just opens you up to more options. You can refresh if you're new to an area and you're not sure what you can listen to. So you've got options. AM is going to be the same way. So if you hop into AM, you can see all of your AM stations available. So everything is broken up individually for your AM, FM, whatever the case may be. If you hit menu along the top, that brings you to a series of other options. So things like your sound settings, adjusting your treble, mid-range, and bass. So as of right now, you can see it's all kind of zeroed out. I find that in this car, treble down a couple, mid-range up 1, bass cranked like 2 or 3 points, tends to give pretty good audio, in my opinion. But what I'd recommend is listen to one of your favorite songs, and while you're listening, adjust these in order to have it so that it's perfect for you. You can adjust your center point. You've got a balance and fade. So do you want it focused on strictly the driver, the front seats, the rear seats, or you could adjust it out this way instead. Reset to default is going to bring it back into the middle. So it's kind of nice you've got that flexibility. And then speed compensated volume, as you're going faster or slower, it can automatically adjust the sound for you. HD radio if it's available, artwork if that's available. So if the radio station has artwork available, that will show up, as well as the basic information here. And that's using the radio. You've got access to the Play Store, so you have to sign in order to do it. You do need an active data connection or be hooked up over Wi-Fi at home in order to see options here, but it's going to give you the flexibility of downloading additional apps right to the vehicle. You've got Apple CarPlay, Android Auto. Since this is the hybrid, you can see the power flow. So you can see your current drive, what range you're getting total. This is going to be your battery level. So it's a pretty small battery, but it charges up quickly and it gives you really good range, especially if you're not gunning it as you drive. But this is kind of a neat screen to see as you're driving because you can see which wheel is getting which amount of power and how the power transfer is going on. You've got Alexa built in. You do have to sign into your Alexa account for it to work. You've got your Google Assistant, so you can set it up this way, that way, hit the steering wheel button instead. There are a series of vehicle settings here as well. Driver assistance, forward collision warning. If there's going to be a potential collision, you could get, there you go, you just heard the engine turn on there, but you could get notifications, head-up warning. So if there's a potential collision, it's going to give you a heads up inside of the cluster screen or the head-up display of a potential collision. Let's see here. What else is exciting? Lane keeping assist. Blind spot system, I would say that's a useful one. And the blind spot system, what that's going to do is it's going to highlight along the side view mirrors. So there's a little icon there that's going to let you know if somebody's entered the blind spot on either side. So you can get an audible alert, visual alert. So it's a matter of preference. Audible, just a little chime inside the vehicle. Traffic sign recognition, do you want that going? Yay, nay, nothing exciting there. Speed limit warning, do you want to get a warning? Yay or nay? Matter of preference, if you like being safe as a driver, you can adjust that one. The attention monitor, if you start to veer over into another lane too many times without signaling, eventually it's going to tell you that you should probably take a break, but you can get a tactile feel, so a little steering wheel shake, or nothing happens. So it's going to be a matter of preference. So with tactile and audible, start to veer over too many times, it'll tell you should probably take a break, shake the steering wheel for you to make sure that you're paying attention. And down. Rear sensing setting, nothing exciting there. We've got basic info for lighting, interior dimming when you go to lock the vehicle, how long do the lamps stay on for inside. Headlamp timer, when you go to lock the vehicle, how long do the headlamps stay on for. And climate control setup, nothing exciting there. There's key access options. So when you go to unlock the vehicle using the key fob, is it just the driver's door that becomes unlocked or is it all doors? So that one's going to be a matter of preference for safety. You could probably just do driver. When you go to unlock the vehicle, do you get a flash? Do you get a beep? Or do you want to be able to remote start using the key fob, yay or nay? And then there are also some kind of neat tricks that you can do with the fob as well. So let's hop outside and I'll show you some neat ones. And in order to remote start, just make sure you're locked. Push and hold that circle button within 10 seconds. And you can see there, so lights coming on. It's subtle because this is the hybrid version of the ride. To cancel the remote start, just push and hold that circle button and remote start's canceled. You can get into the trunk by pushing and holding the trunk release button there. Up along the top, there's also a button that you can push in order to get into the trunk as well. When the car is locked, the fuel door is also locked, so you just have to unlock in order to gain access. And then there's a neat key fob trick that you can do. So if you push and hold the unlock button twice, you're going to go 1, 2, and hold. Watch this. You can release the unlock button to pause it part way, and then push and hold the unlock button. You have to keep on holding. But not only does it open up all 4 windows, but it also opens up the sunroof. So that's really cool. I love the remote start from the fob. It's great, but that window trick, also really cool. Door setup. So you've got your door lock. When do you want it to unlock or lock? When you shift into park, etc. Do you want to have walkaway lock? So that one, you will definitely want to make sure that that's enabled. And that's the one where if you have forgotten to lock the vehicle, you walk away, it's automatically going to lock the doors for you. And then that's your keyless remote window control. So that's the one where you're hitting the unlock button in order to roll the windows down. You can adjust some individual settings. So how do you want everything set up? So you've got your normal versus economy mode versus sport mode. You do have your little selector switch down the middle here in order to adjust between all of your different drive modes. And you can see there, so it adjusts not only what's going inside of the infotainment system, but also what's going on inside of the cluster screen. So you've got your individual mode here, and that individual mode is what we're setting up. So in your individual settings, it's what do you want it to look like? So you've got the flexibility of customizing this out a little bit. I like that it does change up the gauge cluster a little bit as well. And basic maintenance information, you can see your oil life. You can reset different items. So if you're changing oil yourself, you'd be able to reset. It's actually kind of neat. As you rotate the screen, you can see different options that you're looking at. And back brings you into a series of general settings. So if we look at some system options, you can adjust the date and time. So as of right now, we just went through daylight savings time, but you can have it automatically update for you, or you can manually adjust. So if you wanted to manually set the date and time, you'd have the flexibility to do it. Just recommend keeping it in auto. Time zone is a useful one because you've got the flexibility of being able to adjust out to any time zone and lock it in. So if you straddle a time zone and it's constantly flipping you from one to the other, you could permanently lock it into any mode you'd like. Or if that's not a concern, just go auto mode instead. Date format. So auto daylight savings time is the same idea. Because we're in the auto mode, it's going to automatically adjust it there. You can adjust the date format and your time format. So do you want the military time instead? So 12 versus 24-hour mode. And you've also got the option of adjusting your languages. So do you want English, Spanish, or French? You can do it strictly for the cluster screen or for the infotainment. So if you wanted to have, I should probably not have done that. There we go. So if you wanted to adjust this out, you'd have the flexibility to be able to do it. And then the sensitivity, do you want a high or a low sensitivity for the touch screen itself? And let's see here. Is that it for, no, that's it for system info. That's good. Okay. Next up, connections, which we've already seen. Basic privacy information. So do you want to share information with Honda? Matter of preference. You've got your microphone available there as well. Do you want to use the mic? Yeah, you're nothing exciting there. Do you want to share your location? Different apps, you can set it up. So if you don't want apps accessing your information, app permissions, system-wide info. Like some of these things, you can toggle all of the things off. Like do you want to control your microphone, your location, nearby devices, things like that. There is an ads manager here. I personally have never seen any ads inside of any infotainment system. It's concerning that it's there, but it's because it's got Google built in. So it's based off of a Google operating system, which is why it's showing. You can adjust the display. So if you wanted to adjust the brightness of the display, you could do it. Adjust the contrast, the black levels. You could toggle the display off, button press to turn it back on again. You can adjust some sound settings, which we've already seen. So adjusting the treble, mid-range, and bass. You can adjust your sound volumes individually. So your system sounds, your voice recognition, your phone calls, and things like that. I love that there's the flexibility of adjusting these out. So if you don't want to get any notification for your navigation, but you want your other volumes adjusted, you've got that flexibility. You can adjust your camera here too. So do you want to have your camera guidelines, fixed versus dynamic? So if we go into reverse here, you've got your guidelines there. So as you rotate the wheel, we've got both of them showing up. So you've got fixed in place when you're just backing up, but dynamic as you go to adjust the steering wheel. And then in your camera, you've got a few different field of views on top of that. Button push here in order to adjust out your climate set or your brightness settings there too. But you can adjust these things out if you don't want them showing up. Cross traffic monitor. If you're in reverse and you're going to back up, if somebody's coming perpendicular, so from the left or the right side, it can warn you of a potential collision. Voice control is also there. So as a default, it's going to be your Google Assistant, but you can have nothing. You can have Alexa, Google, whatever the case may be. So with nothing, you hit the voice assistant button, nothing shows up. And then Google versus Alexa is available. As I mentioned with Alexa, you do have to be connected. And then listen for Hey Siri. So if you've got your phone connected, so your iPhone specifically, it can listen for Hey Siri there. And then you've got your Google Assistant, whether or not that one's enabled, disabled, etc. Oh, there you go. There's your assistant. From here, you've got security. And profile lock is a cool one. So you can adjust it by a PIN or a password. So if you've got all of your addresses that have been saved, if you've got all your presets saved, your phones and things like that, you can lock out your individual profile so people can't look through all of your options. I personally recommend turning on some sort of a PIN so that when you jump in, people just can't look through all of your stuff. That's a matter of preference. Google, nothing exciting there. Password info, you can send feedback to Google. And then there's some advanced settings, specifically for network. Nothing exciting. Notifications. Do you want to get notifications? Yay, nay. Profile information. Like, this is all some advanced things that honestly, I would say 99% of people are not going to have to worry about. If you wanted to have text from your screen, if you wanted to use screenshots, look at system information for your languages. So this is just another way to adjust things out. If you wanted to tweak out your language for different options, you've got that flexibility. This is an Android device, so you could see which Android version you're currently on. And you can reset things. So if you wanted to reset app preferences, you'd have that flexibility. And back from there, nothing exciting. And then you've got profile settings. So if you've got profiles that have been connected, you can adjust these out. You can adjust your driving position, seating, lock it out to your individual profile. Bluetooth audio. So if you had an audio device set up for Bluetooth, you could adjust there. You can see your trip counters too. So you've got your trip A versus trip B counter versus current. So current is from the last time you started the vehicle up. So you've got your current range versus your fuel economy. You can see your trip 1 versus trip 2 counter. Straightforward. You can hit the menu button there if you wanted to reset. So you could delete all of your trip history, reset trip A or trip B instead. And back, if you had a USB stick connected, that would show up. AM's available. System updates if you wanted to check to see if any updates were available. Wi-Fi hotspot, you do need a data-only plan, but you'd be able to use the vehicle as a hotspot. You can view your clock in a different way as well. Adjust your date and time. You can adjust the clock face if you wanted something different. You could add more in if they were available. Let's see, Honda Link, nothing exciting there. A digital compass, so if you wanted to see which way you're going. Display mode, so you could adjust it out this way there. So you're essentially just adjusting the brightness of the screen. You can see all apps that are available inside of the vehicle. And then SMS as well. The Accord has 2 different speaker choices that are available. So it's either an 8-speaker system or there's a 12-speaker Bose. And for audio, you've got the option for AM, FM. You've got your phones as an option, whether that's Android or iPhone. You've also got the flexibility. Hold on, let's go through. I'll show you all of these options. USB. So if you had a USB stick with some MP3s on there, you'd also be able to utilize that. We can navigate through in order to see the audio library. And the audio that we're listening to here is just coming out of the microphone, so there's no post-processing done. Good audio. We've got basic sound settings here, but let's go through and we'll find something.
Every day, call it replication. Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. Wake up, today's gonna be a good day.
The audio inside of this ride is so good. It helps that it's a small cabin, but Bose audio is incredible. And I mean, it's just pumping here. But like I said, it's a feature packed screen. This, I don't know if I'm too crazy about that. Like the design, it's kind of like cyberpunk-esque, but you could always do like an aftermarket 3M wrap. I think that's the route that I would go with. I'm not, like I said, I'm not too crazy about the design. You just have to make sure that you don't cover up the vents here as well. There's a nice glossy highlight there. There's dual zone climate control. The option for heated and ventilated first row seats on the driver passenger side. You've got basic options here for your climate. So you still do have tactile buttons, which are great. So you're not going to look at digital dials and things like that. There are 2 USB power points, so 2 USB Type-C, one for data, one for charging. There's also a wireless charge pad there. There's a manual shifter inside of the ride. So you've got your park, reverse, neutral, drive. When you're in reverse, you've got your backup camera with a few basic views. So your backup view, and then your top-down view as well. It's actually kind of neat. The shifter, it's comfortable in the hand, but shifting into another gear, this drives me kind of nuts. But it's just a matter of pulling in order to go. Once you've got it figured out, it's okay, but the design there, I'm not too crazy about, just because it's an awkward position that you have to grab in order to be able to flip up to adjust gears. But I like that it's an actual hand shifter. You've got some cup holders there. There are a series of selectable drive modes, but look at this. Love the graphics here. And it shows you inside of the infotainment system as well as inside of the cluster screen. So if you want more economical driving, sportier performance, things like that, you've got different options. There's this little E button, and since this is the hybrid, you could force electric if you want to, and then you've also got an EV auto mode. So what these two modes are going to do, in the auto mode, the vehicle determines when the gas is going versus the electric motor. And then in the EV forced mode, it can force strict EV driving instead. The battery's pretty small, but it is pretty neat at the same time. You can see there how full you are. There's an electronic parking brake, brake hold, and a 12-volt power point inside of the armrest. The glove box is fully lockable, and it's also got a good amount of space. The overall visibility is pretty solid. No real issues with the pillars there. Up overhead, there's an auto-dimming rearview mirror, basic controls for your cabin lights. There's a sunglasses holder here, and then there's also controls for your sunroof. So you can push up if you wanted to create a little breeze, close it from there. It's a manual shade, but with the shade closed, you can push away. That just opens you up. Tiny little bug guard there, but that, it's beautiful. You've got a little ticket receipt holder on the outside. Vanity mirror has lights built in. And then this, oh yeah, look at that, extends out, blocking all of the sun that might be hitting your face. I like that there's an assist handle there that's useful, but overall, I'd say outside of like this, the design I think is subtle, simple. The power button looks kind of neat there too. I love that digital cluster with map and cluster. So good. You are going to be 2 rows inside of this ride, so 5 seats total. So 2 in the front, 3 in the back. There's the option for second row heated outboard seats, so the middle seat would never be heated. Basic window controls with some door storage. With the driver's seat set up for myself being 6 feet tall, inside of the second row I've got a good amount of foot space, knee space, and with me sitting fully upright, the back of my head is actually touching the very top. So if I were to kind of slouch a little bit, I'd be okay, but it's really tight back here. So if you're taller than 6 feet, the only thing I would be concerned of is if you're in a rollover accident, the likelihood of something happening there. So shorter kids, or shorter people, I should say, if you've got kids, no issue there. All of your anchor points are there. Top tethers are behind the seats, or I should say above the seats. You can see the tether point there. You've got a little handle along both the passenger and the driver's side. The driver's side also has a little hook. There's a little light control up overhead as well. You're going to find a pocket behind just the passenger side, nothing behind the driver. And then there are some USB Type-C power points down there as well. There are some cup holders that are built in to the seat, but no, I wish that there was something here that you can easily pull down, because as is, you just got to jam some fingers in there and then crank down for a few cup holders. So if you need to separate kids, drinks, whatever the case may be. I like the thermoplastic rubber trays here. just so much easier to clean them off. And then the middle, so there's a hump. So oh yeah, there's no way. If I thought that the outboard seats were tight, middle seat, oh yeah, it's not happening. Unless I slouch like crazy. Yeah, the middle seat it's actually comfortable. I will give Honda this. Like, the seat itself is comfortable. There's just no space for the second row for anybody that I would say is like above 5'7", maybe 5'8". But the ride itself, though, is plenty spacious. I'm not crazy about the color. Blue, I think, looks really sharp inside of the ride. But the car itself, like I said, is spacious overall, like even first row. So with the seat as far down as it's going to go, up overhead, I've got, 3.5-ish, almost 4 inches of headspace. It's 3.5, we'll say. So plenty spacious there. So 6'4", you'll probably comfortably be able to sit inside of this ride. I love that there's seat memory available as well. Some en route handling here. The handling is pretty solid. The cabin noise inside of the ride, there's a bit of noise. It's not the most quiet car that I've ever reviewed, but going highway speeds here, it's not a big deal. You've obviously got the option of just blasting music through the upgraded audio system here if you wanted to drown out any of that road noise, but it's nothing out of the ordinary. The headrest is extremely comfortable. Like, it's got a really good amount of cushion, and you'll see it here. So the car just took me around a bend without my hand on the steering wheel. So it doesn't have full hands-free driving, but it does have a lane keeping system. But after about 12 seconds or so, you get a message inside of the cluster screen letting you know that steering is required. But I mean, the system there, it works incredibly well. You're only going to find the Accord front-wheel drive, but still, it's responsive. That's just because it's a sedan, so it sits lower to the ground. Front-wheel drive in the wintertime, not necessarily a bad thing. I would just say get a good set of winter tires. I've driven front-wheel drive for years in the wintertime, and as long as you have a good set of winters, you do get good handling inside of it. All-wheel drive is obviously, even the turning radius there is good. But yeah, so it would be nice to see an all-wheel drive model, because all-wheel drive, you do get better traction all around in the wintertime, but still, front-wheel drive with a good set of winters on there, you're set to go. And that was everything you needed to know about the Honda Accord. You can find a build link for this specific Honda down in the description, with links off to Honda Canada, US, and some shorter tech walkthrough videos as well. But if you found this video useful, give it a thumbs up, share it with someone if you think they might find it helpful, and until I see you next time, take care.